Changhua Wu joins us now. She's the China Director for the Office of Jeremy Rifkin, a consulting group. Changhua, thanks very much for joining us. Now, we heard a lot there from the younger generations, of course, many of which are at protests in New York today. Their message: to stop approving new fossil fuel projects, phase out drilling on public lands, declare a climate emergency and provide a just transition to renewable energy. Is any of this possible, do you think?
In reality, they're all possible, and the political leaders even committed specifically, actually, on those specific points and demands, particularly from the younger generation. But somehow, at the end of the day, in reality, we seem to be losing it to whatever the politics or geopolitics. So we still are seeing more, all fossil fuel projects have been approved, and including the United States. In the meantime, somehow we live in a climate crisis there. We are losing lives, properties, infrastructures, you name it, and people's livelihoods there. So this is a harsh reality, and that is why the United Nations and many climate community leaders are literally calling for actions. And the theme of this year's Climate Week is called "We Do, We Will," meaning we do have solutions there. We do need to ask some really harsh questions now, today, particularly this week in New York. In particular, we have the solutions. Why not? Why we continue to be politicizing or geopoliticizing, complicating all the matters there, really blocking the deployment of those solutions to address the challenges that we really need answers. We need solutions.
The UN's climate change chief is calling for stronger action from the nations responsible for most planet heating pollution, China and the US in particular. Is China doing enough, do you think?
Well, at this moment, it really answers this question is not a simple one. It really depends on how you see it. If we look at the commitments to the Paris Agreement, China definitely has been literally on the track in many, many ways. Somehow all the directions or data point to China overachieving its commitments to Paris Agreement, meaning peaking its emissions before 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality before 2060. Particularly look at renewable energy installations as well as mobility, EVs, batteries, stuff like that. That's really fascinating sort of trend. Now, there's the other side of the reality, which is climate change. And the climate change is already happening. We are living in it. And somehow, whatever we are doing now today, particularly from the largest economies there, we are falling short in terms of really, stave off the climate calamities there. This is where I think, particularly for largest economies, they need to seriously coming together to address those issues, particularly looking into how to work with each other on technologies, on markets, on manufacturing, on supply chains, on financing, so that we will really be able to work with each other to address those challenges collectively.
And of course, this week's summit comes off the back of one of the most horrific summers in terms of climate catastrophes. Many people around the world right now, in Greece, in Libya, in Spain, are feeling unprotected and abandoned by their leaders. What needs to happen this week to restore just even that little bit of faith that's been lost by the citizens of the countries, the countries that are most vulnerable to climate change?
It's a tough issue. It's a tough call. So it's not just this week we're going to address those issues, and those issues have been there. We've been hearing countries like that calling desperately for help, for support, and we kept getting, sort of wordy or oral commitments from the developed world saying, financial support for those countries to fight climate change, adapt to climate change there. Somehow so far, we still have not seen that delivered yet. I'm not that optimistic. I do not really look up to this week in particular for breakthrough, solutions there. Somehow I'm hoping this week, through the Climate Week in New York at the UN headquarters, leaders will be somehow coming together seriously to be brought to the table to face the reality and seriously put their commitments on the table with the quantitative targets as well as with the time frames.
All right, let's hope that happens. Changhua Wu, thank you very much for your time. China Director for the Office of Jeremy Rifkin, a consulting group.